welcome. You're watching a special show, Building Hybrid Workspaces. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we live, the way we travel, the way we eat, entertain, exercise, and well, of course, the way we work. As millions of people around the world adapt to what is being called the new normal, as people get vaccinated, and as we learn to really live with the COVID-19 pandemic, the concept of a workspace has evolved to welcome people back in a certain sense. Now, this is where the hybrid workspace comes in. Flexible by design, it is based on a work from anywhere kind of a concept. Offices, co-working spaces, public spaces, and even from home. So what does it really take to build a hybrid workspace? How important is it in today's day and age? And to understand the finer nuances of navigating this space, we have a stellar panel joining us. It's a pleasure to introduce Karan Virwani, the CEO of WeWork India, Ajay Arora, the Vice President, Strategic Planning and Projects, Hero Enterprises, Arjun Vaidyanathan, the COO of KPMG India, and Anandorup Ghose, partner Deloitte India. He also leads the human capital practice for Deloitte. Thank you all very much. An absolute pleasure to have you. Karan Virwani, if I can begin by asking you, work from home has been great for many. But it does come with its set of distractions. It does come with a set of challenges, often unending hours of work, as many have complained about through the course of this pandemic. How does, the hybrid workspace really come in to help here?
Right. Firstly, thank you for having me. I think if you ask people at the start of the pandemic, yes, work from home was working. For a lot of people, it was a new, exciting thing. 2 years in now, I think a lot of people have completely changed their perception of what that is. Both from a CEO level as well as an employee level, having the physical interaction, being able to collaborate, come and innovate for new ideas, build culture so your employees actually feel like they belong to the organization and, they're not just working from home. Some of the reasons why people have realized that this is an office-first hybrid solution that the future is going to be looking at, not a home-first hybrid solution that the future is going to look at. And that's where I guess the office or spaces like ours, where you can touch down, where you can come to meet, become very, very important. But what has definitely changed is what the office is going to be used for, how the office is going to be used. Those are things that are constantly evolving even today. We are the front and center of that whole problem, and also the solution to that entire piece. So very excited for the post-pandemic world.
Right. Mr. Arora, if I can bring you into the conversation, flexibility is really the key of a hybrid workspace. How do you look at the evolution of the hybrid workspace? What does it define for you?
So, before we get into the subject, I think we must keep two things into mind. Human beings have, apart from the basic needs, we've got two basic needs of socializing and travel.
Yes.
Both of them got hit because of this pandemic. And this was a black swan event. Nobody could anticipate working from home, lockdown. Nothing is open. Now, we have gone from work from office to work from home, and then we are now moving to a hybrid. This is a kind of we went to a knee-jerk, and then we are trying to stabilize somewhere in the hybrid model. So there is yesterday I was reading a recent report which says that 75% of employees really want to go back to work. Last year, the number was 52% when the pandemic hit. About 2/3 of the employees prefer to work from third-party setups, a co-working space, or work from anywhere. And the majority of people, 91%, this is a report which just came out yesterday, 91% of the people prefer working to choose a flexible working hour, a flexible working space. In this case, with these kind of statistics, I think the writing is clear on the wall that people like planners like us and planners like us who are on the call, we really need to plan how do we prepare this flexible working space, flexible working hours for people. Now, this is one aspect of this thing, where we are planning for flexible working hours for white-collared people. in our factories, we've got blue-collared people. For them, there is no flexible working hours. We have just made the shop floors more hygienic, more robust, so that people can work and they can produce things which we are using on a day-to-day basis. So I think we need to probably look at both the things: how the factories of India are working and how the offices of that need to take learnings from that. I think that's what is important.
Well, I think that's a really important point that you raised, because you've sort of widened the ambit of the conversation, to include a whole section of people for whom hybrid may not even be possible at this stage. But is it perhaps something that we also need to think about, going forward? Arjun Vaidyanathan, if I can bring you into the conversation, have organizations like yours, for instance, have you had to reinvent, rethink workplace strategy entirely? Or do you think that it was already something which was in the offing, something that has now been cemented because of the pandemic?
See, one needs to understand organizations like us. We are primarily in the client service business. So
Yes.
we anyway work out of clients' locations. Many of our people work out. So working, specifically coming to office on a daily basis and working from a particular location is not the norm in our case. So a lot of people are used to traveling and working in different places. But what this pandemic has actually done is even that, going to a client's place or going working from office has changed quite a bit. So what we have kind of gone ahead is like got an understanding of what people actually want. Okay, it is easy to say that okay, pandemic has basically put everything in a little bit of a breaks, and we need to kind of figure out what we need to do. That's not the case. If you actually ask people what do they want, they do want a change. They do want a little bit of flexibility and autonomy in terms of what they do. So essentially, control over their time.
Right.
Now, what has this pandemic done? This pandemic has given them an option saying that things can happen from remote location also. It doesn't matter where the remote location is. It can be client, it can be home, it can be your maternal place, it can be your anywhere in the country. Today, if you actually look at KPMG India, 27,000 people, they are all across the country today. They are not in the main metros or the main city. They are all across the place. So they want a little bit of flexibility, autonomy. If you look at it from a client's point of view, they also are very happy with this hybrid situation. When you want to come, please come. When you're not required here, you can work from anywhere,
Right.
kind of a situation. So the third important aspect in most of it, which people actually forget, is the trust factor. Now, people wanted to come to an office because you sit in front of me. I need to ensure that you're in attendance today and you're working. Today, that is completely gone. So the trust factor in the employees has gone up. I know there are situations where in the situation like a manufacturing facility, also you cannot have remote working for certain set of people.
Yes.
It's impossible to do it. But for others, the trust factor has really gone up, and these things have kind of required us to rethink our entire workspace strategy, the hybrid model, etc. What we call, things like coming for 2 to 3 days a week, or coming for 2 days a week, or coming to office only when required, coming to office when team meetings are required. These things are going to evolve over a period of time, but it is not going to take away the fact that people still need an office. People still need to come to a particular place for certain things, training, or for interaction, for colleague management, for client management, for project management.
Right.
All those things people will definitely require an office to come to.
Okay.
But has it changed our way of thinking on the entire real estate or the office space? It definitely has.
Sure. It has engineered a change, and I think it's there for everybody to see. But I want to bring in Mr. Ghosh into the conversation. He actually leads human capital practice for Deloitte. And this is a question that I think is very, very important. When you talk about the hybrid workspace, how has this impacted people? And how has it impacted productivity? And when I talk about people, I very specifically want to ask you, Mr. Ghosh, about the need for a team to work together, the need for people to have some kind of a human contact. Do you think that that's something that's gradually fading away, perhaps?
No, and I think you've heard that from all the other panelists as well. I think there are two parts to this. One is the fact that in the initial part of our entire lockdown, and what we went through in the first phase of 2020 was when everybody was superbly worried about productivity. So everybody was asking about the fact that if you send people back home, will they work? Will they while away their time, or will they actually be engaged in activities that they're expected to do? And 2020 proved to everybody that people, regardless of where they are, 9 out of 10 times do what they're expected to do. It's not as if people just let go as soon as they're allowed to go home. And that is the point that I think Vaidyanathan was talking about, the question of trust. People have gained the fact that you can trust a person when he goes back. So I think that question is kept aside for a moment. I think that the other question is this whole thing that productivity, so long as productivity is a reflection of the fact that how many hours do you put in, or do you get that document across to me or not? I think to that extent, productivity is assured. But when productivity requires you to innovate, or when productivity requires you to come up with ideas, etc., that's, I think, the part which is suffering today. Because to a large extent, the whole idea of the workplace was for people to come together and be able to share ideas, and therefore something new is born.
Yes.
Arguably, yes, you can have a platform like this and people can still share ideas. But I'm not sure. I think the verdict is completely not out on the fact whether this kind of a platform allows genuine information sharing, genuine idea sharing. So to that extent, I think and also you're seeing this, right? I mean, across the country, across certain sectors, attrition has significantly shot up. And that's primarily because the employer today is just your laptop screen. So the logo on your laptop screen, and the whole feeling of being in office, being with a manager, being with a particular kind of an organization, that's gone away. And I think the need for the office to some extent is to also get that feeling back into people, that the employer doesn't just mean a set of rules and your computer.
That's a very interesting point that you make. If I could just briefly throw in another question there, Mr. Ghosh, do you think, that feeling of belonging, say attachment, or, a sense of loyalty, companionship, team building, do you think all of those things are gradually fading away? They're becoming less relevant. It's become a more mechanical process. That's something that comes with a hybrid workspace?
I think it's a byproduct. I think it's absolutely a byproduct that if you let people operate from their own corner, it is my decision to take myself out of my corner or not. So
Yes.
naturally, introverted people go more into their shell. Extroverted people can do whatever. If you take any group call in any office, and I'm sure all my colleagues on the panel will agree to this. In most group calls, 5 or 6 people speak. The rest of the audience doesn't speak. And that's because there is that balance. Either the more powerful speak, the more extroverted speak, the others don't. And that obviously creates people apart gradually over a period of time. When you're physically present, it's a different thing altogether. So absolutely, it's a byproduct. I think if you take people out and allow them to completely work from home all their lives, there will be a different kind of a bonding, there will be a different kind of a culture as compared to when people come back to the office.
Karan Virwani, challenges. I mean, we've heard a lot of pros of the hybrid workspace, and in many ways, necessity, mother of invention, this is where it has come to, it was coming to this for a lot of companies and the model in which they work. The pandemic has forced many people to reinvent and rethink about the hybrid workspace. What, according to you, as somebody who understands this space, and you have a 360-degree view, so to speak, what do you think are some of the key challenges associated with a hybrid engagement?
I think it's still early days, so that itself is a little bit of a challenge because it's this untested water. So a lot of the companies are still kind of evolving what their strategy is as things go along. So right now people are trying to figure out, or companies are trying to figure out what works best for their employee base and for their type of operation. We spoke a little bit about collaboration and all of that. Right now, a challenge, for someone like Deloitte, which is a large company, been around for decades, thousands of employees, has a set culture. But if you're a young entrepreneur trying to actually build a business, build a new company, in a growth phase of a company, those things of actually being together, is extremely important. And today that's a huge challenge because everyone's locked at home. There's inconsistencies in when you can come back and when you can't. In certain pockets, there's retracting and coming back. So those are some of the challenges people are facing right now. But everyone has realized that the new world is definitely a one where there's flexibility involved. And I think everyone is just trying to figure out where they fit into that entire spectrum of flexibility. The other challenge, for most people is that managing the office or safety and security From a health standpoint, and even managing, a thing like the pandemic in the future, companies have realized that they don't want to do it. They much rather give it to a professional operator who knows how to do it, who's
True.
certified to do it, to manage it. So I think, smaller operations, one with less processes, one that don't understand, corporate real estate, don't understand how to manage an office, will find it challenging to constantly give the employees a safe
Right.
environment. And that's why you will go to an operator like WeWork to, manage all of that for you.
Sure. Ajay Arora, do you agree that, a lot of organizations in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, the health risks associated with, coming to work physically in an office space have also perhaps led to many organizations feeling like this is not a responsibility they want to take on? Maybe not true for the bigger organizations like Karan was saying, but maybe true for smaller organizations, for entrepreneurs, who feel like it's too much responsibility to take on the health and safety aspect of bringing people to work, and therefore perhaps easier to exonerate themselves in a certain sense of that responsibility and trust the hybrid workspace.
Well, in smaller setups, this kind of feeling is likely to come with small-time entrepreneurs. But that is what differentiates the small-time entrepreneurs then as compared to the dark horses. I mean, if you got to build a long-term sustainable institution, you got to care for your people. That's what our chairman, Mr. Bijmohan Lal Munjal, also used to say, that he built a business worth billions of dollars, only trusting on people and building relationships. And this concept of collaboration is coming up many times. So typically, I'll give you a small example here. When we were designing our university, the campus of our university, which we set up a few years ago.
Yes.
One of the things that we intentionally kept in our mind, which is what I told our master planners, keep corridors as wide as possible. Corridors are the places where students would hang around. I mean, that is where they would freely mingle with each other. That is how we have water coolers, a coffee, a discussion over a cup of coffee in offices. So I think any kind of hybrid workspace that we develop has to provide these kind of things, that providing people to collaborate. Even, for example, they say that teams and families who eat together, they stay together. I mean, how do you provide it in a hybrid space? That's the challenge for us. We need to probably bring those things out when we are designing hybrid workspaces.
Right. I think that's a balance that you perhaps need to strike. And I mean, good foresight to build those, wide corridors, social distancing perhaps be easier now. But Arjun Vaidyanathan, that's the other question. And I think you touched upon that very briefly as well in terms of accountability. Is it an old phenomena now? That you have to have people physically present in a space for X number of hours in order to make sure that they're working. Is that a thing of the past? And the reason I also ask this question is because we in the media industry wouldn't know otherwise. We've come to work every single day of the pandemic. So is that the way the work culture has evolved? And if you want to just briefly touch upon how hybrid has impacted work culture.
Culture is a very big topic. And when hybrid is going to impact culture, it is definitely going to impact culture in a big way. Now, whether accountability, etc., is minimized or diminished because of this remote working, the answer is no. Okay, because people are mature enough, and as we said earlier, also, if you end up trusting people and give them the right tools and processes to really work through, I think people are honest enough to deliver their output. So today what has happened is, as it was pointed out earlier, it is not the number of hours, it's the output. It basically, is the product satisfy what the requirement is? If it satisfies what the requirement is, I think we have delivered what is required to be done. The second aspect, which is very, very critical because of this hybrid and entire culture part of it, is previously organization always felt that people need to be there in the city where the office is. Okay, that became a big connecting factor. So you saw people coming from various parts of the country to either a Bangalore or a Bombay or a Chennai or a Gurgaon, etc., to actually find employment. Now that also meant that skill sets were available in the vicinity of where the offices were. 20, 30, 40 kilometers maybe. But now that particular thing has been broken completely. Today, you chase the skill is available somewhere else.
Right.
It could be, you might be office maybe in Bangalore or Bombay or Pune, and the skill could be available somewhere else. Still, the skill is accessible to you, and they can deliver the product or the solution that you are looking for.
Sure.
So, in a way, I would say it has kind of created a different culture for the organization, and it has forced organization to adapt to this particular
You
model,
know,
which is
you
why we are having this conversation in a big way in any case.
you raise a very, very important point there about the availability of skill. And that brings me to my next question. And before I bring in Mr. Ghosh to answer that, would you like to quickly take that on as well, Arjun Vaidyanathan, financial implications, therefore?
Well, a skill is a skill, whether it is available here or anywhere else, you got to pay the price for that
No,
particular
but the
skill.
financial implications of not having to worry about the logistics of that skill coming to your organization.
Yes, it will be there. I would say today, as it was pointed out by earlier, also saying that the attrition levels have kind of shot up quite a bit in all the organizations. That's the implications of it. Today, if you look at it, somebody is saying that, yeah, I know I have the skill set, so they demand the price. So from a financial implication point of view, it has impacted the company's operations.
Right.
Even from a support and a facilities point of view, today a lot of organizations have given work from home facility or some allowance kind of a
Sure.
thing. All that is going to impact the financial operations of the company, but they are also rethinking the real estate requirements. Many
Sure.
people who had thought about building these large offices at the onset of the pandemic, many have put their plans on hold. And they are thinking of going into adopting flexible working spaces
Okay.
like WeWork and co-works kind of a
Very,
thing.
very quickly, Mr. Ghosh, the financial implications of perhaps not needing the kind of real estate anymore if hybrid comes into place. How do you see that dynamic working out?
So that's absolutely, more than a dynamic, I think it's a reality that many organizations have given away some of the real estate that they could give away.
Sure.
Now, most real estate contracts are long period. They're not like, you can't give them away in a 6-month, 12-month period, but people are reducing their available workspace. The fact of the matter, however, I think the only worry that I have in this entire dynamic is the fact that if you look at the entire length and breadth of the people who are employed in companies in India, in formal workspaces, it's a small population. Within that population, the percentage of people who can actually work from home is a very small percentage.
Okay.
Because to work from home, you have to have a certain quality of income. You have a certain quality of infrastructure available, space, etc.,
Sure.
which means you have to have a certain level of income. Now, India, that income level is not that easy to have. I mean, it's a slightly higher level of income than the average. Our estimate is that broadly, let's say, practically speaking, about 10, 11 lakh people in India, across India, can genuinely work from home given their salary income. And when you look at something like that, you're basically saying that today they are still making do because they've gone back to maybe their hometown.
Sure.
Right, which is low cost and whatever, they are able to manage cost. If you're expecting to come back to the Bombay or Delhi or Bangalore, wherever, expect them to live in the higher cost places. It is willy-nilly, they will prefer to work out of office than work out of home. So in a hybrid, I think that is the biggest challenge that we will have. So while companies at this point in time are able to save costs on real estate, whether this will be true 3 years down the line, I'm not entirely sure.
All right. Well, I think that's a very realistic point of view. Karan Virwani, I'll give you the last word in terms of the future of hybrid workspaces. I know that you said that this is still something that is developing. It's a space that's still coming up, and therefore one isn't completely abreast with the challenges. But a quick last word from you on what you see as the future of hybrid workspaces.
I think the future of work is flexible, right? Whether it's flexible in terms of time, geography, space, and someone spoke about it earlier, is that the employees are now demanding forms of flexibility. So employers of all natures will want to provide that to the employees or to the talent so that they can actually attract the best talent moving forward. We've figured out, and you see companies who are rolling out many more flexible policies than they were before, whether it's like a workation policy, whether it's a 3-day in the office work week, and things like that. So that is going to determine how the office is used and what the future of work is going to look like. We believe the future of work is fully flexible. It's enabled by technology, and it's going to have a huge amount of focus on the health and safety of the employee, and that's what everyone is going to want in the future.
All right. Well, I think that's a great note to end this conversation. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you all very much for sparing your time and being with us.